Plains Angels is an initiative of the Greater Des Moines Partnership that connects Iowa-based angel investors with early-stage growth companies throughout the Midwest.
My name is Ben Lefevre. I am a founder of a company called Untitled, and what we do, we're a digital health communication platform really with the goal of helping facilitate better access to care and coordinating care to improve health outcomes with a real focus on underserved communities. And I think, Joe, you kind of had a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I have the pleasure of helping Ben and being his attorney. We met maybe a year and a half ago.
Yep.
We actually met when Ben was pitching Plains Angels. Yep. And so he's getting, you want to hear from Ben more than me, so we're going to let him do it. But we went through a couple of battles together, and some of the things that we're going to talk about today, I think, are informed by that. Yeah. But other than that, I'm just a pretty face.
Yeah, it's great. I was going through, I was listening to Chris's presentation, all those 10 mistakes, and I honestly felt like I've check.
Ben's going to be more hard on himself. He really should be.
No, but I guess my goal in this, we don't have a bunch of slides. I guess more so my goal is to kind of share my journey and with, talking about as an entrepreneur, if you're a startup that hopes to grow, be successful, you're going to get to a point where you are asking people for money, and just kind of share my journey and that process through that in a lot of different steps of the way. And so I'll kind of start back. 2014, actually end of 2013, I came back to Des Moines to start this business, this idea that I had. And so really bootstrapped it, got things going. So really from late 2013 in through the middle of 2014, just kind of putting my head down, trying to see if this idea I had legs. And you get to a point, particularly where you meet folks like Mike Caldwell and others and talk about what resources are out there to kind of help you get to the next level. And so the state of Iowa, it was mentioned about demo funding or some funds that are available. I think Tej, you mentioned some of the resources that are out there. And so I was able to get some funding from the state. But with that, the initial funding we got, there had to be some matching funds that were available. I mean, I had put in a lot of my own initial funding to bootstrap it up to then. And so knowing that I was going to get this funding awarded, but knowing I had to get some matching funds, that's kind of my first foray into asking other people for money. And through this process, when I came back, had an individual, a mentor, advisor, very successful, didn't really make a lot of moves without asking him questions, feedback, and he was really integral in just supporting my idea and motivating to say, hey, go ahead and do that. And so around April of 2014, he kind of approached me and said, hey, if you're trying to raise funds, I'm definitely interested in putting some money in. And so it was perfect timing because it was going through May of that year, the demo, some state funding got awarded. And as a result, some of his funds were going to be available to help match the funds requirements from the state. And so, as I said, though, for 2013 and 14, just kind of keep my head down, met mentors like Mike and others, but just really grinding things out. And I hadn't really thought, as this is a friend of mine, someone I respected, we kind of had to sit down and basically it was just kind of like, hey, let's talk about what the terms are going to look like. So essentially, I think the night before I was Googling, how much should I give up for this initial investment? And again, this is a friend, known for years. And so we kind of talked about it. I think initially it was a phone call, kind of got it together, got individual to help write the term sheet, the offering. And, and it's how we presented it to him. He did say a couple of things that were, this isn't Joe, by the way, so he said some things that, asked, it's kind of a low valuation based off the amount of money. Also, this certain future investors aren't going to like it. But mindset at the time is like, okay, he's more than just an investor, he's a friend, he's someone along the way. And also I had a time crunch to kind of get this money in, to get the matching funds. And so I didn't take the time, as we talked about for the last example, about getting a term sheet initially to offer when it's an early investor. So we got the deal done, didn't really listen to the advice that we got, all fine and dandy, got the money in, to get on to the next step. And so, we're moving forward in this journey. And then you come to another point where, you think you got some traction, things are rolling, okay, well, I need to raise more of a significant round of capital. And as Joe said, you kind of go through the process, you pitch to the Plains Angels, looking at other people that are interested, and you get some folks that are interested. You know how tough it is. Sometimes your valuation is too high, or you're just trying to get everyone together to couple the group to raise the funds. So there's a lot of challenges along the way. But then when you throw in a term sheet that is really a stopper, a showstopper, that breaks all the momentum and everything. So it was a big learning experience for me. Fortunately for me, we were able to make some of the changes we needed to make. But by that time, in this scenario, that momentum had already been lost in regards to the people that were interested in potentially investing in where we were going next. And Joe, maybe you can kind of jump in and talk a little bit about, as I kind of came to you post-pitching the Plains Angels, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the initial term sheet that I have. And as you kind of were on the other side of the advisor, kind of looking at that and some of the things that came about.
Yeah, so Ben and I had lunch the day that he pitched to Plains Angels, and then we got back in touch. Mm-hmm. And I like to, as you can tell, I like to have lunch with my clients, so that because I find it's a much more comfortable environment for us to kind of have these discussions. And so Ben and I did that, and very quickly on we realized that we had a non-dilution term from an early investor that essentially made it very difficult for later investors to participate. And Ben and I talked about that, and Ben was very upfront with me about how that had happened. And fortunately, we had a couple of meetings, and then we sat down with the investor in question. As typically happens, we essentially negotiated out that term. Yeah. And the idea, I think, for the ask and initial terms is, I think Mike might have been talking about earlier, is that it's great to kind of keep these things simple. I'd rather give a little bit on valuation if I can keep some terms out that are going to cause problems down the road. But ultimately, like Ben, Ben's harder on himself than he needs to be. He needed the cash, and he had a term that got in there, and we negotiated it away later. But my goal as an advisor is to make sure that we get the money we need now, but we don't foreclose the money we need tomorrow. And so having that planning was something that we started doing, and at some point we got that taken care of, and we brought in a very significant investor for Ben that we couldn't have done without having some cooperation from that initial investor. So that's kind of how it happened. Yeah. And Ben was lucky that this initial investor was all in the company and was committed, and also sort of negotiated over lunch with him. But we did that, and so that kind of helped us get on the right footing, so that when we went out and raised more money, we could do it in a way that made some sense.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Joe. And I think as I look back and listen to the other presentations, we're kind of it was kind of that in between where family and friends and a quote unquote angel investor or an accredited investor. And so, but again, for my key learning, and as I look back, I wish sometimes as entrepreneur guys take a step back. You hear it, all the legal stuff is so important, but it's sometimes difficult when you're in that early stage. You're just grinding. You're just grinding. You're just trying to do scratch, claw to get to the next level, and you forget that. And then you have people that believe in you and their friends. You trust them. And it's like, all right, you think it's worth this much? I think it's worth this much. Okay, is that well? You just write that. Oh, well, the lawyer said this. Well, listen, someone that's going to be along the way. Okay, let's get it done. But to me, why we're able to, it could have been truly disastrous, but I think another key point is early on, you want to focus with people that you have really good relationship with. That is a critical piece. And if it's a really early investor, to Mike's point, and what everybody else has pointed out, is that they're investing in you as an individual, and obviously they want you to be successful. So I guess try not to make mistakes early, but if you do, if it's with someone that really wants the best for you, it's not the end of the world. I think you guys can work it out. And so I'll kind of, I guess, fast forward a little bit to another opportunity that CertainTel had, and we had as an organization. So, we were fortunate enough to get some things in order, and it also wasn't, the anti-dilution. Investors thought the individual had a little bit too much equity, and so we dealt with that, which was great. And so you take on the initial seed round, and I think current investors were kind of in between angel and I think they consider themselves early stage VC people, but very experienced investors. Feel like they're friends of mine as well. I'm telling think they know everything. I'm kind of this young guy, but so the relationship is good, and then we had an opportunity post closing that round to get a potential another seed investor from a group whose focus is potential high growth opportunities in the healthcare space that have a really core focus of a unique need or what have you. And so it was a program that I was excited to be a part of. Went through an application process. They were kind of well known in the healthcare space. Out of 400 applicants, they whittled it down to 40. They were going to make 18 offerings. But the amount and the terms was kind of, again, more of just an early stage seed round offering. And so I think we can kind of segue to some of the challenges that happened with that. My attitude was, this is going to be great. They're going to get contacts, validation, exciting opportunities. So as there was a time crunch in that, so I knew my early investors would be so excited about it, just like I was. So signed a letter of intent, got things rolling, and then communicated with the other investors after. That did not work out well. Now, the letter of intent was non-binding, so I'm not going to give myself too much of a hard time. It was more so to say, hey, I kind of like where you're going with this. We are interested in being a part of this process. And then the discussion moves forward because there was some flexibility there. But as I went back to my other investors, being the first early stage investors, and then when you see what the rights they have compared to the rights of this other seed investor, there became some pretty conversations that had to be had. And for me, I was a little taken aback, and I just thought everybody would be so excited about this. It wasn't the case. So I guess, Joe, from your perspective, kind of coming through that process where we had another group that's interested in putting in some seed round, what those rights were, compared to our current investors, and some of the challenges that came about for that.
Yeah, so I remember that phone call as well. I think is that accurate?
Yes.
I think I was in the car that day. I feel like all my it's important ones traveling someplace, which is unfortunate. But yeah, so we had an opportunity, and I think from Ben's perspective, made a lot of sense for the business. But we had made a decision earlier on to bring in some funding that essentially precluded us from agreeing to this deal. And the problem really was that they weren't that flexible. It was an accelerator kind of program.
Yeah.
They weren't they didn't have a lot of flexibility on what they would negotiate as far as an interest in the company. And so, there was a real tension there. And it's easy to, I guess, as an entrepreneur, to second guess yourself about decisions that we had made. These are two decisions that Ben made, which weren't right or wrong, but they were decisions that were made that had consequences. And so, at that point, we had a conversation. We tried to push the accelerator on some of their terms in order to make our initial investors happy. Ultimately, that did not work out, and I think that it was one of those things that was just you could beat yourself up all day long about it, but it was an opportunity that, from a business standpoint, Ben wanted to pursue, but ultimately, because of investment decisions that we had made, it foreclosed that opportunity. And so, and I think that's always something you have to keep at the back of your mind, is that when you're working through these early stage terms, somewhat you're guessing, but keep in mind that there are consequences that you somewhat have to live with later. And like I said, you could beat yourself up all day long, and it's hard to make those decisions. But we ended up, you lost that opportunity just because of the fact that we had investors. Now, arguably it would have been hard to even get to that opportunity without your investors. So that's kind of one of those things that it's hard to. In retrospect, it's easy to say that was a problem, but we worked through it, but it was a lost opportunity.
Yeah, and I think from key learnings for myself, when I guess in this scenario where, again, you're not at a Series A, you're not even at a big seed round, but you've taken on kind of an early angel seed round, and then I think on Sheldon's slide where there was an area where, it was kind of between seed and Series A, so essentially it was kind of the second seed round, essentially. But I think if I would have did things differently, when we got on the call, they did have some flexibility a little bit on that. They even came down on some terms to try and make it work. But again, that's where communication comes in, just making sure everyone is on the same page really early. And again, though, I kind of felt like I was in a time crunch similar to the demo fund where, hey, we want you to be, you're going to be one of the 18 people we're going to invest in, short time frame, let us know right away what's happening. So I felt a little sense of urgency there to do that. But there's always time to say, stop, okay, hey, here's my current investors, let's get on the call, let's talk about this earlier on to see if we can come to agreement versus, kind of down the road where your current investors feel rushed to make a decision going forward. So that was a big learning for me, but also I learned a lot about certain investor rights versus current rights, and that's what was going to be one of the bigger problems. Maybe you can touch on, Joe. In the next round of funding, who has the right of first refusal and all those things. I think some of the details were some of the challenges there.
Yeah. So. Most of these things, as you get into more sophisticated investors, they're going to push for more rights to protect their interest in your company. I mean, that's sort of a given. And I think what you have to also keep in mind is that a lot of those rights are taken by an investor knowing that at some point they're going to renegotiate those terms. And but that takes some time, and I think that the initial answer is going to be no from the investor if you don't give them enough time. And so, Ben was kind of in an interesting spot because he has revenue that, and was looking for, some significant amount of additional capital. So we have an investment fund that essentially invested in Ben early that has a lot of those rights. And as we kind of go down the road and seek funding later, I think Ben probably is going to be looking at a Series A soon. I mean, that's known, I think. We're in a position where we need to kind of respect and understand the rights that we've given away in the earlier stage, because that's going to make it more difficult in some sense to raise money. It also gives us kind of an investor who's maybe interested in funding part of that. But keep in mind that the reason that we push for simplicity early on is because it makes it easier for us to raise capital later. And a lot of times most companies know that first amount of funding that you get is not going to be the last time that you're out. And so keep in mind that you're giving away something of value, even though it doesn't seem like it's of value when you give those rights away, because we have to deal with them later.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Joe. And again, to me, it still goes back to as an entrepreneur, when you get into those initial asks and terms, get advice early. One of the things that really set with me is that, when you get to a larger institutional investor, they're going to set those terms. But earlier on, when it's an angel or someone that says they're angel but not very experienced, you want to have that term sheet ready to present. Because when I think back to the earlier things, a lot of things would have been avoided if I had just taken a step back, used my resources that were available. I didn't go back to Mike Caldwell and say, hey, here's what's going on. I got a demo fund matching to invest. Who should I talk to? That would have been a quick email or discussion. We just made it happen. But again, I hit it again. fortunately, relationships matter, and the people that truly have your best in heart, they will certainly don't want to do anything that will preclude you from being successful. And even early stage investors that I've had detailed conversations. As a matter of fact, I got a meeting with my current board this afternoon. But you know, even if they have certain rights, they know, like you said, Joe, that those may be negotiated down the road because they're, of course, nobody wants to get diluted, but they'd rather have a little, I mean, of a lot than a lot of nothing. So just understand that and keep that in mind, and always communicate along the way to make sure that you guys are on the same page, have a shared goal, shared vision. A part of it is too is that you want people that truly think differently than you, have different ideas than you when you bring on investors as well, because that's the next step. But certainly have that term sheet available for your early investors. Present something to them. Don't do it on, hey, I'll give you 5% or 4% or 3% or whatever you're worth. In the end, that can certainly create some challenges for you. I don't know, you know, it's kind of been my journey so far, with Joe kind of giving some very details of the issue. But I guess we'll kind of open it up for any questions. I know we're kind of up on our time as well, so I don't know if anybody has any questions or thoughts or similar experiences they've gone through or any other thoughts.
Now, with that experience, what would be the number one thing you would do differently in prior to getting first investment?
Yeah, like, man, when you're thinking about getting funding, you know, like I said, demo funding, you just need some matching funds. Gosh, get legal advice. What I did first is I had a good lawyer, but I kind of had a talk with that individual early on, kind of verbally agreed, gave some pushback, got a lawyer involved, again, not Joe. He really did give some things that would be concerning about this. A current investor, again, not doing anything wrong, but just thought, hey, I'm going to be with you all step of the way. This is what I need. And so I agreed to it. Listen to the advice that counsel gives you. They still work for you, so they can't tell you not to do something. So I think for me, always in early stages, get advice, have a term sheet that can be negotiated, and really listen to the legal advice. That's
And maybe other options, so you're not so caught up on one option.
Exactly right. Yes.
And for maybe Joe, is there a signal you can give in the early term sheets that might be part of the term sheet indicating that this is going to be up for negotiation later? Is that something that you do as a lawyer, or you just talk business about that?
People know, I mean, I think most investors who are more sophisticated know that that's on the table, you know, that you might agree to it now, but it's going to be negotiated later. And you know, a key that I think is that none of these are bad deals, I mean, bad decisions that are made, but I don't want to make them by accident, right? I don't want to make them without thinking about what the consequence is later.
Right.
And so, you know, at some point, having those discussions of saying, look, you know, you have these rights, but if you're not willing to fund my next round, or you have to find another investor, you know, what are we going to do as far as that goes? And they're going to say, I'm not giving up my rights now, but you know, later, why don't you come back to me when we have those ones? And so people who do that know kind of that's.
But it's all verbal, that wouldn't be put in.
I mean, essentially, yeah, they wouldn't commit to kind of renegotiating later. I've not seen that before.
And then second question, the legality of different share classes, so preserving shares, anything available there? I mean, you hear about public companies having different share classes all the time, but I don't hear a lot about it other than the founders.
Yeah, so I mean, you can certainly structure all of these, you know, having different classes, typically have different rights. You know, with different companies, that's sort of done a lot of different ways, and we could go for hours about that. But yeah, that's typically how you designate those different rights, is by putting different classes, and those rights are usually negotiated. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to maybe make one observation. Good terms, bad terms, success, not success, they're all pretty relative. And so what I would say is look at scenarios. A lot of more sophisticated folks run waterfalls, right? So if the company is moderately successful, if it's unsuccessful, if it's tremendously successful, then look at these provisions in context, right? a 2 times preference to the preferred. Well, if the company does great and that gets them to where they want to be, that might not be a problem. But if there's a discussion that, well, don't worry, we won't sell till we get here, and then the balance of power allows them to force a sale lower, that can eat up all the money, and the commons and others don't do well. It's not necessarily the provision standing by itself, it's the provision in the context of control and who makes decisions. And so if, for example, there's a discussion on that issue I just mentioned, and everybody at the front end says, that's okay because we won't sell until we reach this valuation, don't rely on the nonverbal, or excuse me, on get it in right. I mean, if that's the case, then balance the power out so that you don't end up in that scenario. Because if you have sort of representations that are part of your decision making, a term that looks really good if a company is doing really well might look really unfair if it's not doing quite as well. Even if it's a good, I mean, a large exit can be split up a lot of different ways.
Sheldon,
My comment kind of to the entrepreneurs are, you know your strengths, whether you're IT or sales and marketing, or finance, or, you know why you're running your business or have this idea. If you don't understand what these guys have been talking about lately that much, get good legal help.
Yeah.
Because this is one area you can get, whatever the word is, messed up pretty quick, pretty bad, it's like hard to fix. So I'd get good, unless you're a lawyer who knows this, I'd get good help early. That'll help you a lot in the end.
And my last, I guess, 10-second point again is to piggyback on what Sheldon just said. I mean, my initial terms, they could be changed and updated pretty quickly. That wasn't fact, but I think more to the point is that if you have some momentum, you got people, a little bit interested, and then you have this little hiccup that you got to change. Just a little bit stopping momentum can just derail everything. I mean, because we know it's tough to raise capital. I'm just saying in general, not here in Des Moines, but you got people interested, and then you got some stuff in the term sheet that you got to get looked at or fixed or changed. Think about how hard it is to do that with everything perfectly. And then you have a little hiccup that can rarely really derail you. So to Sheldon's point, reiterate, before you get an agreement, whether it's friends, somebody you respect, knowing along the way, just get the right documents and get legal advice.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. A little diversion from some of the online tools that startups are using for both managing the raising of the capital and actually raising capital. So the two most common ones are Gust and AngelList. There are other platforms like F6S and a few others, but I'm going to focus first on Gust. And we've kind of touched on this with reference to Plains Angels. What Gust is a single repository of your fundraising materials that you create either before you have identified a platform that you're going to access an angel group through, or concurrently. So on Gust, one of the first things you'll do is you'll create a profile where you talk about who you are. So, who are the founders, why the company exists, what is the problem you're solving. You control access. Just because you publish it doesn't mean everybody who has a Gust account gets to look at it. You publish your data specific to an angel group you're going to publish to. So it should have a pitch deck. And a pitch deck is best in that 10 slide scenario like Mike referenced, but even better if you can add a 5 to 10 minute video. That video is generally going to be seen far more frequently than the business plan, the written text, name it. Mike and I, for Plains Angels filtering, we screen somewhere between 10 and 20 pitch decks a month. And if the video tells us 80% of the story we are wanting to hear, that's when we go into the other documents. Otherwise, we don't even touch the documents. The video is very, very, very good. It is non-trivial questions. It is non-trivial to set up. When I earlier made the comment where people said it's too much work to set up your GUST profile, it is not too much work for the amount of money that's involved, but it is a lot of work. Collecting the business plan documents, collecting the financials, and then pulling out segments of those documents and putting them on the profile. So imagine you have a 30-page business plan, and now you're trying to reverse engineer a executive summary out of it. The greatest pitfall Mike and I see in these pitch decks to summaries is numbers are made up between the two. So you might have a $2 million expected revenue for next year in the business plan, but it might say $3 million in the front. Valuation may be listed as 0 for the fundraise. Things that are little that should be checked off, that should be validated, that should really be reviewed. This one is an absolute necessity if you're going to touch any angel group. There are some angel groups looking at other platforms, but GUST is essentially the de facto. It is the standard pushed forward by the Angel Capital Association, so most of the groups in the upper Midwest are using this platform. The beauty of this platform is, the moment you apply to somebody like us, like to Plains Angels, and we start looking at your deal and we think that one or more of us is going to invest, we instantly share your profile with your approval first, but we instantly share your profile with the other 7 groups, so you don't have to recreate that application. And if, for example, Nebraska Angels sees that Plains Angels is interested, they are going to escalate their review of your business because one of their partner groups is interested. We have no financial relationship here, we just trust and respect each other's work, so that's why we look at it. So from Oklahoma to Minneapolis, you're going to get a wide and quick review of your deal. So always upload, ensure the financials are same as those uploaded. One of the critical elements that we use amongst angel groups is what's called a one-pager out of GUST. So what GUST does is it's essentially a report. So it takes your deal documents, it takes your typed-in information, and produces a 2-page summary, front and back, that lists all of the critical numbers. Every angel meetings that I have ever been to, that one-pager is shared with the individuals, both at the table and generally prior to the meeting. Since you're uploading the data, produce that report and see what it looks like. You might change the format of something a little bit, you might change the text a bit, you might highlight certain text differently. So produce that one-pager, even though it's generally irrelevant to you. You know that information, but it's how the others will see you outside. And then once an angel group declines reviewing you, remove their access. There's no reason for them to see your data or you to keep publishing that. Now, this is happening more and more on the online platforms where competitive companies are coming forward. So GUST will likely address this in the near future themselves. So once a group disengages, they will remove the rights. But since competitive information or competitive companies come up to angel groups, keeping your data safe is important. You don't need to pay for GUST as a startup. So creating your resume, creating your profile on the platform is a good first step.
Stage question on the video
Sure.
thing. What type of video are you talking about? Just a personal pitch? Or are you talking like an explainer whiteboard video? Or what do you think is the
Whatever tells your company's story best. So if the product tells your company's story, tell the product, show the product. If the solution, like a medical solution that's going to take time to develop, talk about the problem more. But whatever tells your company's story best is the right thing. It should not be a marketing video. So you're not selling the product that's already done, that's already out in the market. You're saying, why will this product make you the investor money? And I know you and I have had a conversation related to intellectual property. This is not the place to share intellectual property at all. You can say that I have I have a patent pending process, or I have an issued patent. But things that are private to you, this is pre-NDA, this is pre-vetting, so you want to keep your intellectual property away from this platform at this point. Moving on next, AngelList. AngelList came about 2 years ago for people to raise money from accredited investors through what's called syndication. So, same concept as I just used for Plains Angels. We could have done something like, hey, we're investing in company, in Cerebral Group, and anybody else who believes that our investment is a good idea can follow us and invest alongside us. And for bringing that deal to all of you, we will take a cut off a future sale that Cerebral Group experiences. So that in a syndication, a lead investor is coming forward, doing all of the formal work, all of the initial legal work, all of the tax work, leading up to the day the invested company sells or has some sort of an exit. At that point, they get paid and you get paid. So AngelList it's crowdfunding for accredited investors at its simplest. This is the place, so if you watch Shark Tank, you've probably seen Barbara Corcoran. Barbara syndicates her deals through AngelList. So any deal that she's invested in, you can follow. You're going to pay her 30% carry on anything that exits. Similarly, Brad Feld of Founder Group was one of the earliest proponents of AngelList. Jason Calcanis, another big angel investor who syndicates his deal anywhere from 15 to 20% carry.
What does that mean?
Carry means the cut, the
Return?
Finder's fee.
Okay.
but that happens only at the time the company sells.
And it's just a cut of the profit.
Yeah, it's cut of the profit, not cut of your investment. They manage all of the tax paperwork, so in my case, I have several investments, and before March 15th of every year, I get a whole stack of K1s from them that I have to process. They handle all of the documentation. So the way this site works is it does all of the work for the investor for the fee. So I don't have a say in what the deal terms will be, because I'm accepting what Barbara or Brad or Jason negotiated as the deal terms. I don't have to do a minimum cut like what Matt said. You know, his basic his minimum investment unit was $50,000. I could choose to invest $2,000 in a same year.
What does that do to your cap table?
Perfect.
Let's go next.
Good question.
Special purpose fee.
Well, so here's what happens. So the VC or the fund creates the original investment. They create the deal docs. They are the managing member number one. There are up to 98 other investors allowed in that fund. The startup has that VC fund in the cap. So the startup gets one person, the fund has 99%. Many of these deals I equate many of these deals to pulling the lever in a casino, because you don't have time for due diligence. So the deals have been vetted. Many investors are following another investor, not used. So they're saying, Jason has validated this deal for me, so I'm gonna accept the deal docs as is. So why for the startups? I'm not selling to investors, so why should startups do this? This is a part of your resume. You may never get an investment through here, but when you go in front of an investor and they begin due diligence, the first thing they're gonna do is Google your name, the presenter's name. What shows up? You know, what is a part of your personal profile on Google? If illegal activities show up, well, the chances are the investor is not going to the second level. But if they don't, they're going to LinkedIn, they're going to AngelList, they're going to F6S, they're going to any other site that lists you. If you've done a pitch, probably online. So this is a part of your online profile. Make sure it's complete, and this is a way for you to tell your story. It is a social network. Investors like investing alongside other people. I know there are people in this room that if I saw their names on an investment, I would be more likely to follow that investment because I trust and respect their opinion and their judgment. So this is a part of your social network. You're probably not going to list every one of your employees on this, but you're going to list your high flyers. In Casey's case, your professional resume that extends to 20-some years back is going to have meaningful connections that AngelList profile can expose to me in the form of your advisors. So you would build that social network, you would curate that social network very, very carefully. That's the value of startups. A recent thing that AngelList has done adds another little element of value, and that's for recruiting. AngelList listed startups can recruit for their company on the site. And that's a very interesting element because other startups employees that are listed there are the ones who are looking at you, and vice versa. So again, list carefully, curate carefully. Post-investment, AngelList syndicates will require that you send monthly summaries of what's happening in the business, because those summaries are then shared with the investors in that syndicate. So your summary may include things like, how are you doing on sales this week? What are your challenges? But the most common thing that syndicated companies are asking is, where do they need help? So I've had media companies say, hey, if anybody has a contact at NBC in such and such territory, can you connect me to ABC? Can you connect me to this person, that person? Here's my ask. So that's where the social network becomes absolutely useful to the startup. Let's see. I think I've covered the core pieces. There's one other site I've mentioned a couple times. I forgot to put it on the slide. It's called F6S. F, the number 6S. The 6 stands for the number of letters between the F and the S in the word founders. So F6S. It's a site used heavily by accelerators to recruit companies to come to them. AngelList is number 2, F6S number 1. Your profile there is valuable only if you think you're going to benefit from going to an accelerator. Whether it's a GIA, whether it's InMotion, whether it's Techstars, all of them use F6S because it's provided as a part of the Techstars and the Global Accelerator Network umbrella. So if an accelerator is in your future, create a profile there as well.
One other benefit of that site is they have a lot of discounts for startups. So if you haven't just registered there just to get the discounted third-party services, there's some goodness. Real quick question on the AngelList. So has most of your work been following other investors, or are there any kind of Iowa startups that you said, okay, we'll do either individually or through Plains Angels, we'll do the due diligence and syndicate them, but we'll do that lead part, if you will. Can you help me with kind of what?
We have chosen not to list the Plains Angels deals on AngelList mainly because we did not want to go into the revenue producing model of carries and share part of the revenue with AngelList. So that 20% or the 30% carry I mentioned, AngelList keeps 5% of that. So if I, in a community mode, am saying that Plains Angels invests in AgriSync, and hey, Nebraska Angels, would you like to come along with us? We haven't needed it, and we haven't wanted Nebraska Angels to pay us and pay AngelList to share that. We'd rather all of that money go directly to AgriSync, be invested in it to grow. If we got to the point where other people were wanting to invest smaller dollar amounts, like $1,000, $2,000, and we couldn't fill the deal, maybe we'd look at that, but at this point it hasn't made that.
But as part of the deal with AngelList, you've got to find that lead investor that's willing to go through that process to make the syndicate work.
Right.
Yep. Hey, Tej, I might just comment on this. So some know that I'm also partnered in Insure.bc with a few other ex-insurance executives, and we now have started syndicating our investments in insurance startups on Angel List. And we do it in partnership with Gil Pacino, which you didn't mention Gil, but like BC. And so he adds instant credibility to an otherwise unknown brand in us. And he brings a massive number of followers, right? Committed investors from his syndicate to us as well. But to the point made, most of the deals that we've participated in, we're not first money in, we're not the lead investor. We're kind of the operator angels that come from the industry that can add a lot of value. And the ones that have been very successful for us that we've participated in have been the ones where they've had kind of a name brand, a household name fund that have already committed to be the lead investor. And then, wow, within a couple of days of syndicating that on Angel List, it fills up. So it's kind of like what you were saying is, hey, the co-investors are they're taking the word of whoever the lead is, that they've already done the diligence.
All depends on the lead. So at this point, I would just create your profile, knowing full well that all you're doing is you're establishing your beachhead. You're saying, I own this name, this profile, these are my two core connections, and this is a part of my social network that I maintain and manage. Lead investor someday will determine whether you actually raise money through the business. I have not put in crowdfunding platforms in here. They're still developing, but I think Mike or Chris alluded to this earlier. Most investors, the accredited investors, are currently skittish because they have not seen the pluses or the minuses coming out of crowdfunded deals for the startups in the market.